What's going on, guys? It's Jack with Talking Ball, and today we're looking at Arizona heading into the 2024-25 season. And it's going to be an interesting year, I think, for Arizona. And Coach Tommy Lloyd is entering his fourth year at the program. And something interesting I noted, not necessarily saying yet that this is going to be a continuation here, but his first year at the program, they win 33 games. His next year at the program, they win 28. Last year, which I thought was a really good team, and some I don't know what it was, but last year they had 27 wins. So a little bit of a decline each year. Granted, still excellent seasons for Coach Lloyd. And last year, 27-9 overall. They went 15-5, which was first in the Pac-12, the last year of the Pac-12. And they went 1-1 in the Pac-12 tournament, losing to eventual tournament champion Oregon, and 2-1 in the NCAA tournament, where they lost in the Sweet 16 to Clemson in a game where, quite frankly, Caleb Love shot them out of the game. And Caleb Love had a much better year last year than he did in any of his seasons throughout the entirety. He had that great run in his second season in North Carolina, but that was mostly like the back half of the year. So it was his most complete season as a college player. And unfortunately, some bad habits, I think, kind of reverted in that Sweet 16 game. So I think at this point, let's move ahead. Um, you know, Last year's team was good, but I think it's time to start looking ahead for this coming season. And I'm going to break down here the roster, like we always do with each team, the projected lineup and rotation, and schedule and predictions. So the roster. Who's gone that's notable? They've lost four starters, and that's going to be tough to replace for pretty much any team. Especially, you look at two guys who ran out of eligibility in Pelle Larsson and Keyshawn Johnson. Coincidentally, both ended up on the Miami Heat. Both players I really like as a draft analyst, especially Pelle Larsson, as guys who could be role players at the next level. Then Umar Ballo transferred out. He ended up at Indiana. And Kylan Boswell ended up at Illinois. And Boswell, to me, was a little bit of a disappointment last year. I thought he just could have been better. And I think this is just my guess. I think part of it was hard for him to kind of get his confidence and his flow playing alongside Caleb Love. And I think it affected his game maybe more than it should have, but that's just my guess. So who's back for Arizona? Well, Caleb Love, the aforementioned Caleb Love is back. And then three guys who I think are very intriguing and will step into bigger roles this coming season. Jaden Bradley, who's a nice, fast-paced guard who can get downhill. KJ Lewis is a little bit of an undersized wing, in my opinion, but makes up for it with strength and athleticism. And just, he makes winning plays. I like KJ Lewis a lot. And Montages Krivas, who is their center, who's going to start at center this year. I'll break that right now from the future segment. And I think he's part of the reason why Umar Ballo transferred out, because I think they're ready to play Krivas more minutes at Arizona. Now, who's new? Because I think you lose four starters, you got to bring in some talent, and they did. They did here with some transfers and then some freshmen. So they brought in Trey Townsend from Oakland, who will play forward for them. Tobe Awaka, who can play. I think he's probably best as a center because he doesn't really have an ability to step out. But boy, is he an athletic specimen at 6'8", like 240 from Tennessee. And then Anthony Del Orso, who's from Australia, transferred in from Campbell. Played in the CAA last year, averaged just under 20 points a game. So he's somebody who I'm curious how he's going to transfer up a level. Campbell was not good last year at all. So I'm curious how he's going to do with higher level competition and less opportunities on the ball. Now, they do have two freshmen who joined the program in Carter Bryant and Emmanuel Stephan. Carter Bryant is somebody who I think will play and will be part of the rotation as a top 30 recruit at 6'8". And Emmanuel Stephan is a 7-footer who is ranked just outside the top 100 on 24/7 Sports and could be in the rotation, but it depends on some decisions that Coach Lloyd will make. And speaking of the rotation, my this is my guess, okay? Like it's kind of hard for me to say because they have one guy returning, but I do think there are the three guys that are also one starter returning and the three key rotation guys who are returning. I think all start. So you've got Caleb Love, Jaden Bradley, KJ Lewis, and Krivas in your starting lineup. I think a lot of people would probably agree with that. And the question is, who's the fifth player? And I don't think it's cut and dry, but I ended up settling on Trey Townsend, who I think can play pretty well as a 4 on this team. And he addresses a need for this team that I'll get into in a moment. So I think the rest of the rotation, 6, 7, and 8 are Carter Bryant, Anthony Del Orso, and Tobe Awaka, no particular order. And then I think your backup center spot, unless it's Awaka, which it certainly could be, would be between Emmanuel Stephan and Henry Basar, who is coming back from a redshirt season. And it just depends on how Coach Lloyd wants to play. If he wants to play big, he'll get one of those 7-footers in there with Tobe Awaka. If he wants to play a little bit faster, then maybe Tobe Awaka gets the center minutes, and he's next to guys like Townsend or Carter Bryant to maintain some size at the forward spot. But the reason why I thought Trey Townsend made sense to start is when you look at the 4 other guys in the starting lineup, there's no really good passer there. And even coming off the bench, there's nobody who's a great passer. In last year's team, you had 3 guys who averaged over 3 assists per game in Boswell, Love, and Larson. And Larson was just slightly their assist leader from the wing spot. And Townsend averaged about 3 assists per game at Oakland. And they just really need playmaking. And I think he can provide some of that from the forward spot, which is going to be really important for this team to get some easier shots because they don't have a true point guard on this team as far as I can tell. And that's going to make things a little bit more difficult offensively. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please drop a like, subscribe to the channel for more great basketball content. And here we go with the schedule and predictions. So non-conference play, they have some tough games, but I wouldn't say it's the hardest non-conference schedule, which makes sense as they move into the Big 12, one of the 2 most difficult conferences in basketball, in college basketball, I should say. So they've got an away game at Wisconsin. They'll play at home versus Duke, which is going to be a great game. Then they'll have neutral site games in a tournament here with Davidson, either Providence or Oklahoma, and then either Indiana, Louisville, West Virginia, or Gonzaga. That Gonzaga matchup is the one that you circle as hopefully that could take place. You have Coach Lloyd taking on his former school in Gonzaga. And lastly, they'll play UCLA in what would have been a conference game, but thanks to all the conference alignment, is no longer. So I like that they're scheduling that one for the fans, basically. So conference play, home and away games, they'll take on Arizona State, BYU, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and Baylor. And then at home, they'll have Utah, Colorado, TCU, Houston, and Central Florida. While they'll go on the road to take on Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, and West Virginia. So that's a lot of information right there. And listen, this is going to be Arizona's first year in the Big 12. It's a big adjustment. I think also there's going to be increased travel. You're talking about having to go to West Virginia, Cincinnati. I know being in the Pac-12, you're a little bit more used to having to travel just because the schools are a lot more spread out on the West Coast. but having to come nearly to the East Coast. Thankfully, this year they don't have to go to Florida. But you get the point I'm getting at here, where they're going to just have to travel a bit more than they would have. However, like I said, since they're coming from the Pac-12, it's not quite as big of a difference. But I think the big difference is the level of competition, because the Big 12 right now is certainly better than what the Pac-12 was last season. And for that reason, my prediction is that they're going to go 9-2 in non-conference play. I think they've got some winnable games there. I think that Duke game is going to be tough, and I think they'll stumble in one other game. So that's where I get to the 2 losses. And then I think 13-7 feels about right in conference play. I think this team, as I was alluding to at the beginning of this video, is a little bit worse. Now that gets you 22-9. So last year they were, what they have? Let's see, 24 regular season wins. So it's 2 wins worse in the regular season. So not really much worse, and I think that makes sense. Like, you lose 4 key starters, you lose 2 guys like Pella Larson and Keishad Johnson and Umar Ballo. You're just not going to be quite as good. I don't think the guys they brought in are quite as good as the guys they lost. And that's how I end up with 22-9. So I think they'll be a tournament team, but I think they're going to be seeded somewhere around 4 to 6 is my guess. But let me know what you guys think about Arizona in the comments below. What team do you want to see me profile? We've got about a month until the start of college season, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.